welcome to the CARA mid-session legislative review and update. We're so happy to have you with us today. All right, regulatory subcommittee. The regulatory subcommittee has had some really interesting things to review this session. There is a potential change coming to the closing statement related to a piece of legislation. And this is all about clarifying for consumers a land survey versus an improvement location certificate. Now it's already in the contract to buy and sell. So now we're just clarifying to consumers that they do have that choice. And I think if you watch the real estate commission meeting, you'll see them take up that change related to the closing statement. We're also doing a bill this session, or I guess I shouldn't say we're doing, it's not CARA's bill, but there's a bill at the Capitol dealing with establishing a fair housing unit in the Department of Law. One of the things we've worked on primarily with this bill 1082 is to make sure it's not overly broad. So it's not the Attorney General intervening in every housing transaction in the state. The bill is, along with us and several stakeholders, now more narrow to sort of systemic violations and more focused on the rental space, not the for sale space, but the rental and mobile home area. Really what we wanted to make sure that happened was the Attorney General not being involved in every single transaction throughout the state, because we think that would burden the housing market unfairly. And the Attorney General is really meant to be involved in those frequent bad actor violations and sort of systemic statewide action. The regulatory committee also had a very interesting bill that they have reviewed this session, House Bill 1111. I'm sure many of you heard about after the Marshall Fire, the underinsurance and that lack of communication that may or may not exist between your insurance company and the disaster victim. Well, House Bill 1111 is addressing that change. And so unfortunately, it won't help past victims or the Marshall Fire victims, but it will help forward facing disaster victims. The bill changes the requirements in the insurance industry of how much percentage of coverage they have, up to 65% now of rebuild, and also makes basic common sense requirements around a regular point of contact. So as you can imagine, if you're a disaster victim, you're dealing with clearing debris, planning to rebuild, figuring out what the code is going to be related to your rebuild. You're also figuring out the costs of the inventory of everything you had, everything that you're having to purchase, and the ability to rent and cover your mortgage while you are waiting for your house to be rebuilt. Well, this bill is really regulating a lot of that insurance coverage side and how that process will work to make it easier for consumers, and then also standardize some of the procedures in the insurance industry. So we're happy to see that one go forward. We're also looking at some interesting bills related to building efficiencies and energy. I think those are spread throughout a lot of our bill sheets, but many of them fall in the regulatory subcommittee. Mostly what we're focused on in the energy and environment bills is ensuring that they are voluntary as much as possible, and that they're really factoring in whether or not they are taking into account the cost of how much that might add to a housing transaction. There's also a sunset on the Board of Real Estate Appraisers that's going through this year. And of course, appraising is a huge part of the housing transaction. We want to make sure they're continued to be licensed. And so we're watching that bill to make sure that it is in a good place. One bill that the LPC is opposing is the protections for mobile home park residents. That's House Bill 1287. There's a small provision of the 50-page bill that has a rent control provision, which we just think is the wrong way for the state to be involved in housing transactions. It caps that rent to 3% and really limits a property owner's capacity to cover the cost of infrastructure build outs. We've been working with the bill sponsors and trying to find a workaround, but as of yet, that provision hasn't come out of the bill. So we remain opposed to that bill until we fix that section. We are also looking at some occupational licensing, portability bills, and generally, again, on the criminal justice reform section. Really what we're worried, or I guess I shouldn't say worried, but tracking here is making sure that if people are coming in from other states, they have the same competency and education requirements as you all do in Colorado, so we can all serve consumers in an effective way. And that's 1098 and 116 that they are reviewing. So as you can see, our regulatory committee is very busy as well. That's it for this update. Check out our next video to learn more in the links below.